Streamed by clicking the WHOW live icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. My guest on the phone is State Representative Dan Caulkins. Mr. Representative, how are you, sir?
Great, Seth. Great. Thanks for inviting me on this morning.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking time with us. It's always good to catch up. And I know most imminently on your radar right now is some legislation regarding the maps that were drawn. And I know that there's some litigation that is imminent. I believe tomorrow, you told me, Dan. What's going on there?
Well, as you know, we've talked about this before. You know, the Republicans filed a lawsuit. The House and the Senate Republicans filed a lawsuit claiming that the maps that were passed in May were unconstitutional. And then the census data came out, and the Democrats called us back into a special session and essentially acknowledged that the maps they had passed in May were inaccurate. So they wanted to pass a new bill. So they passed another map bill. So we had to amend our complaint to say that the second map that the Democrats passed was unconstitutional, didn't meet muster. So the courts have decided that the first map was indeed unconstitutional. Mm-hmm. And they've also, I think, decided that the second map doesn't pass muster as well. So tomorrow, all parties, the Republicans, the Latino group, and the NAACP are required to post what they think should happen with the legislative maps that were drawn. Mm-hmm. Now, the court mandated us to do that. We really aren't happy about having to do that. We think that there ought to be some independent commission, that draws these maps. Politicians shouldn't be drawing maps. But this is what the courts asked. So our attorneys have put together their recommendations, and the other two parties have put together their recommendations. And that'll go to the court tomorrow. The court will take it under advisement, and then I'm sure we'll be back in a week or two to hear what they think. And they could accept our map. They could accept the Latino map. They could accept the NAACP map, or they could reject everything. And no. So, sorry about that. I accidentally let a cat out.
We've all been there.
Holy smokes, that would have been a disaster. I'd have gotten killed. So that's what we're watching in the federal courts, and it's going to be interesting to see.
What do you make of it when the governor is asked about this topic and he gives the line of, we've asked the Republicans for maps and they don't put anything forward. What do you make of those types of comments from the governor?
Very disingenuous. He's a guy that said that politicians shouldn't be drawing maps. He's studied this for years, that the political partisan maps that have been drawn in the past have disenfranchised, or these were his own words, all captured on video. And so for him to say, the Republicans didn't give us a map, well, we believe what you said you believed, and that is that we shouldn't be presenting a map. This should go to an independent commission and let them decide how these maps should be drawn without regard for how many Republicans live in this block and how many Democrats live in that block. And this is where Dan Caulkins lives, and it's a, I don't know, it's a strange occurrence. And now we have to live with this for 10 years. Mm-hmm. That's the sad part.
Are you disappointed that the Chicago Press Corps, which is largely the ones that follow him around most of the time, are you disappointed they don't ask about his claims from his campaign when he was campaigning for governor?
Well, yeah, certainly I am disappointed. I'm not surprised. their interests aren't necessarily those of the people of Illinois. What I'm really surprised about, and the maps, another part of this, the maps that the Democrats drew effectively disenfranchised the Latino community in Chicago and the surrounding, DuPage County. There's been a large growth of Latino families, and the Democrats used that to bolster the, black and white incumbents. And I don't know why. I mean, I know why. And that's why we're in this lawsuit. But this is a constituency the party espouses to represent, and yet when it came time to draw the map, they essentially disenfranchised that community. Same thing happened down in Metro East, down in East St. Louis, in that area. Again, the Democrat Party professes to want to protect the voting rights and representation, the African American communities. And they went down in the Metro East after they got the census data and carved up the black community down there to protect a white male incumbent and enhance the re-election efforts of another Democrat incumbent at the expense of the African American community.
State Representative Dan Caulkins with us here for this morning. A lot of people, Dan, I mean, you talk about the maps and those sorts of things. A lot of people kind of grow frustrated with Illinois Republicans focusing a lot of their attention on maps when, the constituency feels like there's more pressing issues. Like things like, COVID mandates and things of that nature that they could be fighting for equally as hard and things of that nature. What do you say to those types of comments?
Well, I think they're misplaced, Seth. First of all, there's really you can do more than one thing at a time, but the congressional, we can't really mess with the congressional, but the state reapportionment maps, this is a 10-year map. And if we don't get it right at the beginning, we're going to suffer under this map for 10 years. So this is our opportunity to try to make that case. Unfortunately, we have a federal court who's interested in helping resolve those issues. Mask mandates, lawsuits have been filed. We've done everything we can to help the lawyers in court. The Democrats in the General Assembly don't want to touch it. They don't want to upset their piggy bank, Governor Pritzker, who they're now counting on to fund their reelection campaigns. And so they're not going to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't even get them to have a discussion, let alone a vote on ending these executive orders. They've been bought and paid for, by the Pritzker administration. I can't believe that they aren't, they don't have the same concerns that I do in my House district. I mean, they have to be getting the same calls. They have to be talking to the frustrated parents. But money talks, and it's my belief that they're sitting on their hands. They don't want to say anything because they don't want to upset the governor.
Mm-hmm. I've heard the thought that whether you're a Republican or a Democrat in Illinois, and as it relates to, as we kind of transition this conversation to COVID a little bit, the way you'll get lawmakers to act is to make them feel that impact politically. How does one, a listener out there this morning, Dan, how does one make that happen? Make it impact politicians, from a political perspective. I mean, and everybody wants to be reelected. I think that's fairly evident from the, conversation we had leading up to here. How do you make that be the potential impact on them if they don't act on things in the COVID world. How about that?
Well, people need to get involved politically, and you know, we've not generally, you know, most people aren't political. You know, they have their jobs. They're, you know, got a farm or business, or, you know, they work and trying to raise a family, and they don't really focus on politics. But now I think it's very apparent the power that elected officials have over you and your life. And if you don't take a stand, if you don't get involved, you're going to get run over. And that's the message that I'd like to convey to your listeners. I don't care if it's a school board, a library board, a city council, a village board, you know, find a place to get involved in this political process. And if you can't personally get involved, find a candidate that you want to support. I don't care what party it is. If there's someone that represents your views and someone that is going to stand up for what you want and what you believe in, you need to let them know. You need to let them know that you're there for them. Mm-hmm. And it may be that you host a coffee, or you go to a fundraising event, or you walk in a parade with them this Sunday in Hayworth. There's ways to get involved. And if you're financially stable and you're able to help, it's always welcome, to help support a candidate financially. It costs money to run a campaign. It costs money to, get yard signs and door hangers, advertising on radio. And if you can make a financial donation to a candidate, that's a big deal. I don't $25. $25 is a commitment to a candidate, and I know that we all appreciate very, very much, the financial support of the folks that we represent. So that's kind of the message. Let's get involved. Let's try to change this.
Dan, let's take a break here. Come back with some more. State Representative Dan Caulkins on the phone with us here for this morning. More to come on the WHOW Morning Show.
MR Systems Wireless has an immediate opening. They're looking for a full-time internet installer to perform the initial setup of wireless internet and voice-over IP services, as well as troubleshoot and repair wireless and phone services for customers. You'll be responsible for the basic installation and maintenance of wireless equipment. No experience necessary. Includes health benefits, mileage reimbursed. Starting pay is $15 an hour. Find out more and apply by going to mrsystemswireless.com, then clicking About, then Employment. Equal opportunity employer.
Dave Jackson here from your Clinton Save-A-Lot. We've dropped over 500 prices throughout the store. This is not a limited time event, but big savings every day. Find out how much you can save by clicking our icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
Peterson Insurance Services in Clinton is a 2014 Pekin Insurance Illinois Agency of the Year. Jay Peterson here from Peterson Insurance. Find out about Pekin's auto, home, or life insurance by clicking on our icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
Clinton Maroon live play-by-play this season on WHOW, the Big 1520 daytime, 92.3 FM in DeWitt County and 106.5 in Bloomington Normal all the time. Plus streamed at DeWittDailyNews.com on the WHO mobile app and Amazon Alexa. Plus tune in for a best of Clinton sports broadcast every Saturday morning at 10. All brought to you by Baum Chevy Buick, Clinton Athletic Boosters, Clinton Community YMCA, Mid-State Eye, and Grimsley's Flowers.
This is John Carter, Chief of Police in Monticello. As a law enforcement officer, I've seen the impact that depression and suicide have on people. Many times, those contemplating suicide endure considerable suffering and distress. But there is help. If you feel depressed or lonely, there are many resources to help you. Call a trusted relative, friend, or minister, or call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline toll-free at 800-273-TALK. That's 800-273-TALK. All of us are here to help.
You're listening to The Morning Show, streamed by clicking the WHOW live icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
Once again, and good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. My guest on the phone is State Representative Dan Caulkins. And Dan, a couple of things have come out of the legislature in recent weeks. Right of Conscience Act as it relates to the COVID vaccine. I think a lot of people kind of at least see the theme there. Some do, some don't. And then, of course, the parental notification for abortions among the topics that have been legislated in recent weeks. What do you make of, let's start with the Right of Conscience Act, and what do you think about that?
Well, this is really a strange occurrence. We were in the veto session, which means that we were supposed to be talking about bills that the governor had vetoed, generally not used for new legislation. That's happens, under regular session. But because we were in the veto session, anything that was proposed had to be passed with a 70 vote margin. So the Democrats brought forward. They're very frustrated. They're very frustrated by people exercising their right not to take the vaccine. And the lawsuits that have been filed all over Illinois are a thorn in the side of the governor and an embarrassment in a way. And so he got together with the Democrats in General Assembly, and they decided to do an end run around the courts. And they drafted a bill and proposed this bill and passed it with their 60-some votes that says that the original intent of this bill, which I believe was, 40 years ago, past 40 years ago, did not include an individual's right to refuse this vaccination. And I got a little unhappy about that. And I wanted to, so how does the General Assembly today know what the intent of the bill that was passed mean? And we're in court trying to decide all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's the process there? I mean, is this something that you can challenge, and how do you see it playing out? I mean, how strong of a case do you think you have?
Well, I think that there's a very strong case. Otherwise, the Democrats would not have put forth this bill to try to circumvent the court system.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to influence the judiciary. They're trying to they think by passing this bill and the governor signing it into law that says what the intent of the Right of Conscience Act was, what it was and what it wasn't. And, I don't know if the courts are going to pay attention to it. The irony is, because we did this in a veto session and they could only get 62 or 3 votes, this determination doesn't go into effect until June. So between now and June, it's a weird situation. But I think it's an admission that they know that the Right of Conscience Act does apply, and that people should be able to object on personal grounds to taking the vaccination.
Mm-hmm. One thing I'm kind of curious about, Dan, does most likely predominantly Democratic judicial system in Illinois, does that bode well for cases like these that Republicans are fighting against?
You'd like to think it doesn't. And in reality, I'm sure there is some, bias. Each individual judge has their own, political affiliation and their own beliefs. But for the most part, I think the courts are fair. They're fair. They've been giving due process to the complainants. I know a lawyer here in Decatur, Jerry Stocks, got a very favorable ruling from the courts on mask mandates. So we'll see. But you have to have confidence that the courts, we'll see we'll see this with an open mind.
Mm-hmm. About a minute, Dan. Give me your thoughts on the parental notification legislation as it relates to abortions.
Terrible bill. A terrible bill. I mean, we're talking young girls under the age of 18. We've seen young girls 13, 14 years old, seeking abortions. A parent, not to have a parent or a guardian or someone in their family, an adult, know what's going on. It's not blocking it. It's not stopping it. But if something goes wrong, or there's a side effects, or there's other issues, and nobody in the family knows what's wrong, it's a terrible, terrible thing.
Mm-hmm.
The Democrats are hell-bent on making Illinois the most abortion-friendly state. Come here for vacation to get your abortion. I mean, it's terrible. And I hope that the voters remember this in a year from now.
Well, Dan, we got to let you go for the morning, my friend. It's always good to catch up, and happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, and we'll talk again soon in December.
Thank you, Seth. It's always a pleasure, and we'll get back to you in about a month, I guess. Isn't that right?
I believe so. Hang on the line with me if you don't mind. I'll confirm our next time together, but we'll do that next. State Representative Dan Caulkins, our guest on the phone here for This Morning Network News on the way.